Sparking a pro-aging revolution happens one life at a time, when people begin to shift from just being an older person to a true elder as they harvest the wisdom of their life and then use that to impact the lives of those around them.
This is a show where we'll explore what it means to retire with purpose.
To make a difference, to invest in your family, your community, to live to your full potential and explore abundant opportunities to live with purpose and community.
From Garden Spot Communities in New Holland, Pennsylvania, welcome to
Purpose in Retirement.
Hello, I'm Scott Miller, the Chief Marketing Officer at Garden Spot Communities.
And I'm Juanita Fox, the storyteller.
In this season of Purpose in Retirement, we're exploring the envisioned future for Garden Spot Communities. We're leading into the spark of pro-aging revolution. We're talking with authors and writers and social media influencers who are using their voices to raise awareness of ageism in our culture and around the world.
In the first episode for this season, we spent some time with Steve Lindsey, the CEO of Garden Spot Communities.
And Steve shares the background for Garden Spot's envisioned future and his personal vision for what the world will look like when we're successful in this vision.
It's an inspiring conversation which sets the stage for the rest of the season. In a moment, we'll talk with Steve.
Steve, if you could just tell us a little bit, from that visionary point of view, right? How do you see sparking a pro-aging revolution, and what does that mean?
Yeah, that's a great question to start with. I think the short answer is we would see Garden Spot Communities having a voice in changing the world. And it really is. If you look around the world, this whole issue of ageism is such an issue. It's such a problem because we have reached the point where we have become so age segregated, where we have marginalized older adults. It's not just an American problem, but it is a huge American problem. I think we do it better than anybody else. And so if we're going to start to see change, it probably needs to start here. And so I was reminded just recently of a conversation I had with Dale Weaver years ago. And Dale Weaver was the founder of Garden Spot Village. And so I was talking with him. It was shortly after I'd started, and I had a bunch of documents on my desk, and one of those was the vision statement for Garden Spot Village, and it was to be the premier or the preferred retirement community in Eastern Lancaster County. And I said to Dale, "Is that really it? Is that all our vision is? Because we're already the only retirement community in Eastern Lancaster County. I think maybe we made it." And Dale stopped for a minute, and he thought, he said, "You're right. There's no reason that we shouldn't have a voice in how older adults are served all around the world." And my first reaction was, Dale, you can't go from Eastern Lancaster County to the world in one leap. And he said, no. He said, it doesn't mean that we are the only voice, but we should have a voice. We should be at the table. And it's a whole nother discussion, but Garden Spot Communities has been at the table globally in terms of conversations about how older people are served. And I think this is the same thing. We don't have to be the only voice, and we can't be the only voice, but we should be at the table, and we should be leading the way in creating this vision where older adults aren't marginalized any longer, where our older adults aren't pushed to the side, where instead people are wanting to have older adults in the conversation, in their community, having a voice and being able to share the wisdom and the life experience and the resiliency that they have developed over their lives, because that informs future generations and it filters down through, and it gives younger people an opportunity to understand that regardless of what they might be facing in their life, it's going to be okay. They're going to make it. They're going to learn from those failures and their successes, and they will go on to do great things. And having an older person who's your mentor, who's giving you that insight from their life, is just huge. And we have lost so much of that in America, right? I mean, the Stanford Center for Longevity had a white paper they released a couple years ago, and they said that at the beginning of the 20th century, so early 1900s, the United States was one of the most age-integrated cultures in the world. By the end of the 20th century, we are the most age-segregated. Everything we do is segregated by age. And we have lost so much as a result, as a society. And you can see that as our society starts to fray a little bit. A lot of that is, I think, because we have lost that wisdom that comes with age and life experience. And so we really need to bring some of that back. And I think we can do that. We can be that spark. We can be one of those voices that demonstrates how good life can look as you age. Because we see it here at Garden Spot all the time. People who are living amazing lives, who are having incredible impact on the world around them as they age, and being able to share who they are and what they've learned, and just continue to serve people in amazing ways.
You know, there's so many people that you look at them and you would think they look like they're in their 60s, maybe their early 70s. They're like 90 years old, right? And they're still traveling the world and doing amazing things.
Yeah.
Maybe I can take you down a side path just a little bit. You tell a story about when you were in Zambia and you were trying to explain what a retirement community is to the young people there, and it took a while for the light bulb to come on, but it's a great story. I mean, can you just tell that for us real quick?
Yeah, my family and I were in Zambia a number of years ago to help out at a camp that was serving AIDS orphans. Just a huge part of their population had been decimated by the HIV/AIDS virus, and so there's all these kids who were orphaned, and so we were there to kind of help out. And I was talking to a group of the men, Zambian men, and they said, like, what do you do? What's your job? And so I'm trying to explain what a retirement community is, what a CEO of a retirement community does, and they just weren't it was a foreign concept. They don't have retirement communities in Zambia. And so I'm talking more and describing what happens here and everything. And finally one of them nods knowingly and big smile on his face. Yes, he said, I understand now. He said, but tell me, how much does one have to pay to live with the elders, right? And it's a whole different perspective. And coming out of their culture, it absolutely makes sense. You know, how much there is great value in this, in being in the presence of the elders. What are you paying for that? And I just thought that was a fantastic way to look at life, because that's not the way we look at it in the United States.
So that's a great story, isn't it? Just to get that idea across. But I know you got a question or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are some of the initiatives that Garden Spot Communities is undertaking in order to move the Spark Pro-Aging Revolution forward?
Yeah, I think there's all different kinds of things. You know, how do we think about intergenerational life, and how do we think about the wisdom of the elders? And part of that starts with an experience that I had a number of years ago. I was in Canada, in Winnipeg, for a strategic planning session with Mennonite Central Committee. And I was seated at a table for a couple of days with a fellow named Harley Eagle. And Harley was a member of the Dakota Nation, and he did restorative justice work with First Nations people in Canada. And I had always been intrigued with that American, Indian, First Nation culture, and how they hold their elders in such high esteem. And so I just pestered poor Harley relentlessly with questions over the course of those couple of days, at mealtimes, at breaks, and on and on and on. Asking him about culture. What does it mean to be an elder? How does one get to become an elder? What's the job description for an elder? Is there a test? On and on and on. And Harley stopped me at one point and he says, Steve, he said, I think there's something you need to understand. He said, not all of our old people are elders. He said, a lot of people in our culture just get old and cranky the same way they do in yours. Those are not the elders. But the elders are the ones who've taken the time to harvest the wisdom of their lives, to learn the stories of our people, and then to actively invest all of that in younger generations. And it was like this light bulb went on, right? Like, this is what it means to truly be an elder. You don't get to be an elder just by reaching a certain birthday. You have to do the work to become an elder. And so there's a number of things that we're doing. One of those is the wisdom course that we have at Garden Spot. And it's teamed up with local colleges, and so they offer an elective for incoming freshmen. And we have a group of residents who goes through that process of harvesting the wisdom. You know, not just telling your story as a narrative, I did this, then I did that, then I did the other thing. But actually, what did I learn from those experiences? What are the key learnings that I've drawn out of my life? And how can I use that and share that with younger people? And so then they get to spend a semester together, you know, learning from one another, getting different perspectives on life, sharing that wisdom that they have accumulated and learning from the younger students as well. And it's just been phenomenal. But that is part of the spark, right? When we can bring generations together and realize that the other one's not so scary after all. That all of a sudden, you know, we're just human beings who have different age spans, but a lot in common. And so we've been able to see that. And then in other ways, you know, different intergenerational connections. We have school groups coming onto the campus and spending time with our residents here learning. We have the Early Learning Center in town brings their students over once a week to spend time here. We've got another school that's in the fall going to be sending their 8th grade students, their whole 8th grade, over to get dementia training.
That's awesome.
And then to volunteer throughout the school year in our memory support area.
Wow.
So yeah,
That's incredible.
I'm really
Wow.
looking forward to that. It should be so much fun. We have this summer, we were approached by a camp. I was having a conversation with the camp director, and he was kind of talking about the change that he's seeing in children coming to camp. And kids these days are just riddled with anxiety, and so being away from home and in a new environment, and they don't know quite what to do with that, and it has just compounded significantly from, you know, everybody had those away from home experiences and it was hard, but it's different now. It's just qualitatively different. And so we were talking about that, and out of that conversation, we now have a grandparents in residence program at that camp, where this summer, when the kids go to camp, they will have a grandparents there.
That's awesome.
Whose job is nothing other than to simply love on those kids and listen to them and let them know it's going to be okay. And they have somebody there they can just sit with or cry with or talk with or kind of talk it through. So, you know, all of those kind of things begin to create this sense that we really need one another in society. We need to be a community that's not age segregated, but a community that's age integrated. And when we get to that point, it just makes life better for everybody.
Yeah, that's really powerful.
So as you look out over the horizon, 5, 10 years from now, like, what would be your dream? Where do you hope all this ends up?
Yeah, I would love to see a time, and I think it's coming. I'm not sure if it's 5 years, but it's definitely coming, when we're not as much looking to create retirement communities, you know, where people go off to for a certain season of life, but we're creating opportunities for people to live together in community that are age diversity communities, a place where people can just through normal life, you know, we've all had that time where we need, you know, a little help with that dinner that we're cooking. How great would it be to have the person across the hall or next door be able to share that? Where you have people who care about your children as you're raising them and are looking after them. We had a blessing in our lives. We were living far away from family, but there was a woman in her church, an older woman, who every so often would tell my wife and I, you guys need to plan a date night because I want your kids for the evening. and so my kids called her Grandma Marge, you know, and they just loved on Grandma Marge and she loved on them. You don't have that when you're set aside and on the margins of society. So I think my dream would be where we once again reach that point, you know, kind of going back to the future, right? Where we reach that point where we are once again an age-integrated culture, where we see the blessings, and where we have revised this role for the elder. Not just saying if you reach a certain age, you have earned respect of everybody, but for those who have done the work, to have that opportunity to truly be an elder, to be that voice in the community that brings wisdom, that brings life experience, that brings guidance to future generations. That would be a dream. Yeah.
So who do you see as our partners in all of that? Because it feels a little counterculture to our industry, is that we're a retirement community industry, but we're looking at an age-integrated community where people can live vibrantly regardless of their age. So how do we move forward? Who do we look to? Maybe some of the usual partners, but then maybe some of those people that you would love to work with, if they would understand and buy into the vision for what this could mean.
Yeah, that's a great question, and there's no social movement that doesn't start without some key voices involved. Right. And so we're starting to see some of those people step forward and resist this ageism in the world. So people like Jamie Lee Curtis, who has resisted efforts of Hollywood to shape her into the person they want her to be. Right. And she's been very vocal about her striving against ageism. Martha Stewart was on the cover of Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition this year, and it starts to break through barriers. Just this week, there was a 60-year-old attorney in Argentina who was a contestant in the Miss Universe competition down there. So
that's great.
So we're starting to see those just kind of pop up all around. When we really know it's starting to work is when it filters down from those lone voices who are certainly well known, but when it becomes a part of our colleges and universities and our churches and just our community at large, when people start coming together in the place they live and saying we can make a difference. Peter Block writes a lot about community life, and one of the things he says is that we have developed very much a consumer mentality to life in America. And so we begin to believe that everything we need can be purchased. And so, you want a good education for your kids, then you buy good school teachers. You want good health, you buy, a good doctor. You want to have a good spiritual life, you buy a good pastor at your local church, and on and on and on and on. And he says we need to go back to the time when we saw ourselves as the source of the solutions to our challenges. When we began to see ourselves coming together in community and creating the answers for ourselves. So having those spokespeople out there highlighting the issue is critically important. But more important, it's going to be for communities like Garden Spot and local communities to begin to say, we can start the change right here, and we can be a part of the solution here locally.
Yeah. And I love the fact that we're connecting with local colleges here in Lancaster County and in Montgomery County as well, to begin to change that narrative for the students, that they can recognize that there is this wisdom in our elders, and that we can glean that and move forward and learn that it's going to be okay. Like this, if I fail this test, I'm still going to be okay, because there's a bigger plan in place for me.
Last year we got invited to participate in an intergenerational conference. That was that's a national organization that does some of that intergenerational work. And in talking to Matt Kaplan, who's at Penn State, there's a local intergenerational organization that's coming to Lancaster this year. I think part of that was because we were at the intergenerational conference last year talking about some of the stuff that we were doing, and it came up like, we have to come to Lancaster. And so that just sort of starts that. I know you're going to do a keynote there, so people could come and hear your keynote. They asked me to do a session, so we get to talk about these things in a broader setting, I think, which is really helpful.
Yeah, we've been blessed to be given a platform, right? A platform to speak out, to begin to share, to begin to just prompt people to think about why things are the way they are. And so that's part of being the spark, is to just kind of pique people's curiosity and their interest. And we all have this desire to continue to learn and grow as human beings. And if we begin to push back about some of those stereotypes that are forced on us, if we begin to push back against some of those misperceptions, I think, that are forced on us, if we begin to say, aging isn't all that scary after all. And in fact, I mean, you look at, what do they call it, the U curve of happiness? We're our happiest in our life early in our life and late in our life. And so what can we learn about how to be happy? Everybody wants to be happy. And there's, self-help books fill shelves in bookshelves or in bookstores on how to be happy. Well, another way to get it isn't to go down and spend all your money at Amazon on those self-help books, but just begin to talk to some people who are happy, some people who've lived long lives, who have learned so much, and what has brought them to that place of joy, that place of happiness. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, had an interesting kind of epiphany late in life. We're all familiar of that hierarchy that leads up to self-actualization as kind of the pinnacle of life, right? That's what we learned in college, that when you self-actualize, you're just becoming the best version of yourself, and it's a lifelong pursuit. But near the end of his life, Maslow came back and said, there's more to it than just that. And he came out to that with his own life experience. He said, when you reach a certain point and you become that best version of yourself, then the next step is to transcend yourself, to begin to share yourself with the world around you, to begin to grab hold of issues and ideas that are bigger than yourself and make a difference in the world around you, to make a dent in the universe. And so that's what we have a chance to do as we age. And we have residents, people who live here at Garden Spot, who are making a difference in the world around them. We have people at Frederick Living that are making a difference in the world around them. And if we can highlight that and just hold them up and tell their stories as an example of what life can be, I think it can be incredibly inspiring. It's inspired us. It's inspired me. Yeah.
And that's kind of where just to circle around another question is, like, how do you think Garden Spot is poised, sort of like uniquely poised, to do some of this work?
Yeah, well, it's just that. It's not us. It's not me. It's the people who live here that have done all this incredible things. It's people who come to Garden Spot communities and say, I've lived a long life. I've gained a fair amount of wisdom, I hope. I've got all this life experience. You guys take care of the mundane chores. Free me up to do what I'm called to do at this season of life. And so we've seen that happen. We've seen so many examples of people that are literally changing the world one life at a time through that experience. And so I think that just being able to tell their stories, and use Garden Spot as a megaphone to highlight the incredible things that are done every day by people who live here. That's our opportunity.
Is there anything else as you were thinking about this conversation this afternoon that you were like, I want to make sure we talk about this, or I want to make sure we talk about that? It sounds to me like you're saying our Spark of Pro-Aging Revolution is really one person at a time, right? That idea that we can all make a difference and we can all impact somebody else and move forward together. And so is there anything else that you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, sometimes we think about a revolution and we think about ageism and some of those sorts of things, and we begin to think, well, this is all about our rights. We've seen different movements where people are demanding their rights. They're starting a movement. It's a revolution about, I need to get what's mine. This pro-aging revolution I see is fundamentally different from that. And instead of people slamming their fist on the table saying, I demand my rights because I've reached a certain age, it's people who are saying, I have something to give. Just allow me to give what I have accumulated in my life and share it with others for the betterment of society. And that should be a message that all of us embrace.
Yeah, it's inspiring, right? Because it flips it upside down.
Yeah, it does. It's all about giving, not getting,
Absolutely.
It's about sharing yourself with the world, and instead of being the curmudgeon who's slamming his fist on the table saying, I need to get everything that's mine. Get off my grass.
Right, right.
It's just different, and
Yeah.
it's refreshing.
Well, thank you so much for
Cool.
your time.
Yeah.
We appreciate the conversation, and we look forward to this season of Purpose in Retirement, where we'll be talking about the Spark of Pro-Aging Revolution in general. To some of this, Scott alluded earlier, we've got writers, we have some authors, we have some social media influencers and others who will be joining us, and we're looking forward to how this shapes out through the year. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.